Hello friends, welcome to Kami-sama Constellations. My name is James and I'm going to be doing a relationship reading for you today. So that might be an issue that you have with your closest loved one, with a boss, with a friend, with family, or anything else really involving a relationship with one or more people. Let's get started. So take a moment to reflect on where in your life you might have a relationship issue that you'd like to work on. The only real requirement for this reading is that you choose an emotionally charged issue. If it's not an emotionally charged issue, then the reading probably won't work. And I'm going to take you through how we're going to do that. As with previous readings that I've done on this channel, we're going to be doing a constellation oracle reading using objects. In this reading, it'll be 4 objects, and you can see them marked 1 through to 4 with a kind of tally. So you're going to need a pen and paper for this exercise, and it's going to require you to choose your problem, the relationship issue you want to zone in on, and then split that problem into 4 separate elements. So just to give an example, if for example you had an issue with a friend that you felt was coming up, you might choose for number 1 the element representing the idea of expressing your issue or discussing your issue. The second element might be not expressing yourself and processing the issue by yourself, because, for example, if you had some fear around discussing it. Element 3 might be the desire to develop more intimacy in that relationship with the friend. And then element 4 might be the idea of taking a step back and maybe putting down some boundaries with that friend because of needing to. So if you haven't done so already, take a moment to pause the video and in your notebook or on your paper to write down the numbers 1 to 4 and break down the relationship issue that you have into the 4 separate elements. There's no real wrong way to do this. Just go with your gut, go with what feels right, and give it a go. As I always say in these readings, it is a general reading, so take everything that I say with a pinch of salt. This is not guru-like truth. This is just my embodied sensations of what I think is coming up for me. Take what resonates and leave whatever doesn't. So as with previous readings, I'm going to be using this Wheel of the Year board that I designed for you myself, and on these stones are marked an arrow which will indicate their direction when they've been thrown. And after throwing the stones, I'm going to do an embodied reading of each object, and you'll check in to see whether it resonates or not. So may this reading bring you more clarity, more understanding, compassion, both self-compassion and compassion for other people in your life in doing this reading, and may above all it bring you more love and happiness. Okay, so starting with object 1, whatever you've written down as 1 on your notepad, it's the black stone that's in the top left-hand corner of the screen right now. As I'm reading this object, to be honest, I feel really like trapped. I'm aware of being in the very, very far corner of the board. You can also barely see it in this shot because of the candlelit vibes in this reading, but I am actually literally on my side. The stone is on its side. I'm feeling really lopsided, uncomfortable. I feel almost like when you're in a coach or in a plane and you're in like a narrow, uncomfortable seat and you can't get comfortable. I feel, lopsided and really uncomfortable. Whatever number 1 is, I'm feeling that sense of discomfort. I'm also really acutely aware, I've just realized that unlike the 3 other elements in this reading, I'm well, as I've said, in the corner of the board and really in the realm of spirit. So it's like I'm as far out from living life and being in the wheel of the year as is possible to be. So it's like I'm really, really on the outside, and I'm in a kind of strangely dead place. I don't necessarily mean literally dead, but it's like I'm not participating in the wheel of the year. That's the round circle that you can see in the shot. Um, I'm in the position of the spring equinox, which is, a really, a time when life on the land is coming into abundance, and yet I don't feel abundant at all. I feel like I'm stuck in my coach seat on like a 6 hour coach ride that I can't have a break from. I feel trapped. So take a moment to tune into that element that you've written down as number one and see whether any of those elements ring true for you. That sense of being trapped, lopsided, not being able to participate in life, being a bit stuck, and literally on your side. And one other thing, I was about to just move on to element two, but I just realized as I was moving away from element one that another thing that's really struck me is that all the other elements are turned away from me, or at least like half turned away from me. I feel like I'm in a predicament and I'm not getting any attention. I feel actually quite alone in this position. It would be nice to have some attention on me, or even to know that anyone knew I was there in the first place. I don't know if anyone knows that I am where I am. Okay, moving on to element two that you can see is the greyish stone on the left hand side of the shot. I'm just in the area of Samhain, just coming into Samhain, which is not far off from where we actually are in the wheel of the year right now as I'm filming this in the UK. I'm also aware from my arrow that I'm facing in the right direction, meaning that I'm going the direction that nature does go, from Samhain into winter solstice and then into the spring. So that feels good to me. I'm feeling a certain solidness to me, like there's something about my size as an object that feels quite solid, small and compact. I also feel like my positioning on the board feels solid. It's like I'm in a comfortable position in the wheel of the year. I had to pause the video there because I was feeling a kind of confidence in myself as I was tuning into element two. And I can't tell whether it's like a healthy confidence or like an overconfidence of like, yeah, I'm in the right direction, I'm in the right place, I'm participating in the wheel of the year, I'm feeling kind of solid. I can't tell whether it is just like a grounded, healthy confidence or whether it's maybe like a slight sense of superiority over the other elements, thinking, oh yeah, number one's on the edge of the board, not really going in the right direction, and I'm here going in the right direction. There's something about it I've got a question mark over that I'm just not sure about. Another thing is that just that personally here, I associate Samhain, or more commonly known as Halloween, as a time of like within the Celtic New Year, which is what this board is based around, as like a time of real introspection, reflection, renewal, reflecting on the past, remembering the ancestors. And yeah, as element two, when I'm tuning into element two, I don't really feel much of that at all. I'm not feeling like very introspective or reflective, or even like I want to honor the past or the ancestors or whatever I might associate as an individual with around this time of year. I feel more like the phrase that comes to mind is like each man is an island. I think I'm misquoting that. I don't even know where that comes from, but that sense of like individualism that maybe is very popular in the Western world, especially, of that sense of like we can do what we want, we're individuals, we don't have any ties, we're free. I feel a little bit like that energy. I don't know where that's coming from. I have no idea whether that resonates with what you've written down as number two, but that is coming up quite strongly for me. And especially for me contemplating Samhain, which is like for me about humility and like bowing before the ancestors and all of that. Whether you're into that or not, I don't know. But this feels like a very different energy, like almost an individualistic, that sounds quite judgmental, but like individualistic energy. And I'm just curious about that. So before I move on, just please do bear in mind what I said before. Take everything I'm saying with a pinch of salt. Okay, I am giving some quite strong embodied impressions right now, and they may not correlate with what you've written down. So just be open to it, but also don't feel like you have to take on it any of my shit that may have nothing to do with you and your issue. Anyway, tuning in to element 3. I'm just going to take a moment. So element 3 is this green piece of sea glass that you can see in the very foreground of this shot. I can see immediately that I am facing the wrong way, as in my arrow is pointing in the reverse direction of how the year progresses. I'm kind of facing element 2, not entirely, but I'm on the very edge of the wheel of the year. So I'm having some really technical issues doing this video today. I'm sensing, I literally just stopped my video midway through shooting, and I'm sensing that I've got some like mischievous energy currently like thwarting my plans to get a reading done tonight, but I'm going to soldier on. And I just want you to bear that in mind. Like, is there anything within the relationship that you're currently looking at that might have some like trickster energy coming in? I don't know whether that's relevant, but as I was saying, element 3, looking backwards in time, I'm in the spring equinox position, which, as I have referred to already in this reading, is like that kind of coming into abundance when the land is really starting to produce a lot of plant life, growing lots of delicious foods to come. But I'm looking in the direction of Imbolc and the winter solstice. I'm feeling very aware that I've got this like backward facing thing. I feel a kind of maybe like a longing. It might be a longing, or it might be some kind of sense of like nostalgia looking backwards. I'm definitely not looking towards Beltane on the left of the shot, which is where I would be looking if I was kind of following the natural progression of things. I also just realized, literally it's out of shot, but on the right, to the right of me, there is element 1 hidden away in the corner, and I had no idea, as I was just doing the read for element 3, I had no idea that I was so close to element 1. And that feels weird to me. It's like we're so close, but I can't even see that element. That element is turned away from me and isn't even in the wheel itself. So there's something about my relationship with element 1 that feels important. I almost got this image of like lying in bed with, if someone's in a relationship with their partner and they've just kind of had an argument and they're like on two sides of the bed, like faced away from each other. I don't know why that came to mind. But just this sense of like there's something, I've got some energetic connection to element 1 but can't even see them. They're really close to me, but also I feel like so far away from them. All right, element 4, this circular coin you can see at the foreground of the shot. I'm just really aware that in this reading today I discarded one of my objects from the last reading I did for you guys, which was a piece of wood, and I replaced it with this coin. And I'm just acutely aware of the fact that I have a coin in this board. I don't know why. I'm aware of it being metal and flat and presumably cold, even though I'm not touching it right now. It has a kind of, there's something about its metallicness or like its coldness or circularness that feels significant to me. I have no idea why. You can have a look at what you've written down as element 4 and see if that connects in any way. I'm also just aware of like the mirroring of the fact that I'm the only circular object in this reading, and I am on a circle, the wheel of the year, and I'm very close to the center. I feel that there's some connection there, and I have no idea what it is. And all of that said, despite the fact that I feel very solid and flat, I also feel like I'm kind of on a cliff edge, because I am right at the center, on the edge of the central circle of this board, which also represents spirit, like the outside of the circle on the very outside of the board. And I feel like I'm almost on the edge of a hole, like an abyss. it's like I'm teetering on the edge, and it's almost like I've got this kind of feeling in my body of like vertigo, like I'm about to fall down a well, or like I have no idea what that is, but I'm very close to the center. I'm still kind of in the realm of like summer solstice, between summer solstice and Beltane, which is like an abundant, very bright and light time of year, but I'm very much focused in on the center of this hole, what looks like a hole to me, this circle. And if, yeah, I've got this image of like, excuse my dog, I've got this image of what feels like I'm standing on the wall of one of those like traditional old cliched wells, water wells, and it's like I'm looking down the well. That sounds really ominous and terrifying. I'm not saying you have to take on that energy. I'm just telling you what I'm getting in my body, and it feels like I really want to step back. Like I want to step back into like out of the realm of spirit and into a safer, what feels like a safer space. Okay, so this is normally the moment in the reading where I might move some of the objects to see if I can create greater harmony in the reading as a whole. But actually something just strongly came to mind before I went to do that, which is that before I did this reading, I drew two cards. They're oracle cards that are designed by Kim Kranz, a great oracle card designer, in my opinion. And one was the sword, which you can see on the right of this shot, and one is the healer. You can't quite see the writing, but you can see those three snakes kind of twisting round in that card on the left. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because I have this strong sense in the reading so far that there's a distinct lack of harmony going on, which is not a surprise because obviously you've brought an issue that feels somehow emotionally charged or problematic. So the fact that I'm feeling disharmony doesn't surprise me. But one thing that resonates from those cards that I drew before starting this reading is that the sword card is all about making decisions, you know, being decisive and being able to kind of quickly take action in a way that is grounded in your intuition and your intelligence. And I just get a sense that something needs to happen in this reading that's going to allow clarity to cut through like a sword. And same thing with the healer. I really get a distinct feeling of whatever's being brought to this reading around relationships is, you know, maybe obviously up for healing and that something needs to be healed. So I just wanted to mention those cards before I moved any objects, just in case any of that resonated. Okay, so without wanting to be dramatic, when I'm looking at this this reading so far, the word that comes to mind is dishonesty. And I don't know why that is exactly, but it's almost like what's coming to mind for me is like being at a dinner table, either like a family dinner table or like a dinner party with friends, and there's some issue, like an elephant in the room that hasn't been mentioned, and everyone's kind of like, oh, look at the painting over there, like number two is looking at the painting over there, or number three is like, oh, what wonderful food, and everyone's kind of talking about pleasantries, but there's actually like a big fuck off elephant in the room that hasn't been mentioned. And so something about the positioning of these elements makes me think of the word dishonesty, like almost like not, and maybe that's not fair, maybe it's not about dishonesty, it's more about something being left out, something being excluded because it feels awkward bringing it up. And I'm looking at element one right now in the right hand corner of the box, and I'm just thinking something has to change here because this dinner table setting isn't very comfortable and it feels kind of awkward. So let me just tune in and see what needs to move. So in the theme of a dinner table, a dinner party, I feel like I need to bring everyone to the table, for want of a better phrase, because I'm imagining this is the table, right? You've got element one over here that's like looking out somewhere, feeling very trapped. You've got element three that's aware of element one being close now, but feels kind of awkward and like they're not really talking. So my instinct is saying, actually, yeah, I'm going to bring them all so that they can at least look at each other and just see how that feels when they're all looking at each other. I'm acutely aware that element four felt like it was about to fall down a well and really needs to take a step back. So I'm going to start by moving element four back, keeping the element in the same position of the summer solstice, but just back from this, what they described as the well. with fear. I'm aware that element 2 was feeling maybe a little bit haughty and slightly superior. I'm not sure if that's true, but possibly. And although they're facing in the correct direction, I'm actually going to get them just to turn in towards the other elements. Their arrow is now facing this way, because I feel like it's not that they need to be taken down a peg, but there's something, I think they need to look at the reality of the situation. So I'm just facing them in this way. Element 3, I think, is okay where they are. They're facing that way. I might just turn them to face in a little bit more so that they can see everyone. And element 1 definitely needs to move. I'm going to bring element 1 into the circle, keep them in the same position of like the spring equinox, but just be next to element 3 facing inwards. So now all the arrows are facing into the center of the circle, and my sense is that they're at least facing each other. But let's actually do a reading and see how they feel in those new positions. All right, tuning into element 1, the black stone in the foreground. I mean, oh god, I'm sorry, I just keep on laughing. I feel like wait, 1 second. Okay, sorry, I just had to pause the reading because I wasn't sure what was coming through, but I just feel like I've been oh my god. Okay, I know how I'm feeling. I've just sat at the dinner table. I've been invited to the party finally after being shoved in that horrible corner in the dark. And I'm like, thank you. That's what comes up for me. It's like, thank you. Like almost like, just like, for goodness sake, finally, I'm here. I'm allowed to participate. It's almost like there's a slight anger there in a good way, like an empowered anger of just like, thank you. Finally, we're looking at each other at least. We're talking about whatever this issue is. And I'm here. I'm not locked in a cupboard like Harry Potter, like under the stairs. I'm actually free to be part of this conversation. Take that or leave that. I have no idea what that is. I was about to move on to element 2, but I also just realized there's another feeling that came for me after that initial thank you, which is just like, oh, like I can breathe, like actually relief. Like I'm in the spring equinox area, the time of, lots of growth coming into the land, and it's like I can finally breathe. It's like I'm finally alive. I did say actually, I think earlier in the reading, that I felt quite dead in the region, in an area of deadness, in the area of spirit. And I'm finding myself really breathing deeply with relief, and like there's definitely a feeling of relief of like, oh gosh, once that initial pang of anger came through, actually I'm feeling relieved and just like, oh thank God I'm like in this area of spring and rebirth and growth. It feels really relieving to me. Sorry, one final thing before I move on is just I feel really good about being next to element 3. I feel we're really close, and I'm really glad to be next to them. As for the other elements that you can see further away in the shot, I'm not so sure how I feel about them. I feel okay, but element 3 it feels very comforting to be near element 3. Interesting. I'm tuning into element 2, this greyish stone you can see in the foreground. I remember feeling quite confident in the last reading, and now I'm feeling almost slightly threatened by element 1 and 3. It's like I can sense their closeness. There's a feeling of, like slight fear maybe. I feel a slight element of fear. Yeah, it's like a feeling of trepidation, and suddenly feeling a bit alone, like that confidence has definitely gone. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a read of the other remaining elements 3 and 4, and then I'm going to come back to element 2 to address this feeling of fear that's arisen. Okay, tuning into element 3, this piece of green sea glass in the foreground. Yeah, I feel a resonance with what number 1 said. I feel pretty good about being close to them. I was aware of like feeling almost like a bickering couple before or something like that. And that I now feel that I'm glad that they've come in, basically. I feel glad that they've come into the circle. What else? I also feel, having heard what element 2 just said, I feel like we're no threat to element 2. I heard the fear, I heard the anxiety as element 2 looked across and saw me in element 1. But actually, my sense is like, oh, they've got nothing to be scared of. Almost like I don't quite understand why they're feeling scared. Maybe it's because they feel so far away and that they have a need to be included. So that's what's coming up for me there. I feel good being in between the spring equinox and Beltane. It feels like a really generative, growthful time. I feel, yeah, I feel like I'm growing. I feel like I'm a plant almost growing and thriving and slowly coming into the time of summer. Um, it feels good to be where I am. I feel pretty solid. So tuning into element 4, this coin that you can see in the foreground. I mean, just immediately comparing to how I felt before when I felt on the precipice of a well or like needed to step back, I feel really relieved. I feel so happy to be in the area of the summer solstice, time of abundant growth and longest days of the year. I feel, yeah, just very relieved. Yeah, like what element 3 said, I feel like I'm looking over at element 2 that was expressing all that fear on the left hand side, and I just don't. It's like it doesn't square with me either. Like I think, yeah, we're all being honest, whatever that means. We've kind of stepped up to the table. We're all facing each other now. I don't feel threatened by the other elements, and I don't feel like I'm a threat to them either. I feel kind of like benign and positive. Um, I feel like a good influence on whatever's going on in this system and this relationship. So I'm also feeling confused as to why element 2 is feeling kind of endangered or at risk. So tuning back into element 2, the greyish stone in the foreground of this shot, having heard the other words of the other elements that were just spoken, what am I feeling? Because I was feeling a sense of trepidation or fear, especially about elements 1 and 3 over on the other side of the board. Okay, interesting. So actually, some of that fear has dissipated just having heard the words of the other elements. What I'm actually feeling now is just maybe like I've been brought down to size a bit. Like I was feeling maybe overly, I think it was overconfidence I was feeling before, or some, you know, each man is an island, that kind of vibe. And it's like seeing the other elements for the first time properly. Maybe actually what I'm feeling is like a slight sense of aloneness, and I'd really love company. I'd really love to be part of all, just to be included and not to be out on my own, like living my own individual life. So that's what's actually coming up for me now, is less a feeling of threat. Yeah, it's almost like what I was feeling before was like an old childhood memory, like kind of that what I imagine in the playground when you've got two friends who are talking to each other across the playground, and you're like looking at them from far away, and your imagination is becoming a bit paranoid, like, oh, they're talking about me or they don't like me. And actually, now that I've heard that the other elements don't really have any negative feelings towards me, it's like, oh, can I be part of your game too? It's like a desire for inclusion and to be part of it. All right, so as I sometimes do in readings, I do make a second experimental move if I feel like any of the elements require it. And in this case, I think that is the case. Element 2 that you can see to the left of the shot has expressed a desire to be included. Elements 1 and 3 on the right of the shot, I think, are pretty happy to do that. So I'm actually going to move element 2 over from this position of like the autumn time around to the spring. And I'm going to move all of the elements so that their arrows are facing in the correct direction of the wheel of the year. So elements 1, 2, and 3 in the position of the spring equinox, facing towards Beltane and then summer, and then obviously round to autumn and winter finally. And element 4 was very happy with their position in the summer solstice, so I'm going to keep them there, but I am going to turn them in the direction, the correct direction of the wheel of the year, so facing towards the autumn. And I'm going to do a final read just to make sure everything feels okay enough. All right, modification. As soon as I did that and then started to tune into element one, I realized I probably made a mistake. Element one was like, this is way too claustrophobic. This isn't working for me. So actually, instead of moving element two all the way across from autumn to spring, what I'm going to do is just move them round a bit so that they're a little bit closer. I'm going to put them here in bulk so that they're a little bit. Am I going to do that? Okay, scrap that. I'm actually going to put them here at Beltane so that they are kind of in the gang, let's say, in between 1 and 3 and kind of spaced out a bit so there's a bit more space. Let's do a reading of that, see how that feels. All right, so tuning into element 1 again, the black stone on the right hand side of the shot. Oh, that feels so much better to me. I had such a strong feeling in my gut when element 2 was right next to me. It was like, oh, I needed to. It's not that I don't like element 2. It's more just like, oh, actually, I need some space. So I guess what I was doing as element 1 was setting a boundary and just saying, actually, element 2, I'm happy for you to be closer. You've expressed a desire to be more involved, closer to me in 3. But actually just being right next to me, like we're kind of on a country walk with 3 of us next to each other, just feels a little bit too intense. So this feels like a good compromise to me as element 1. Let's see what element 2 thinks. Oh my god, element 2, I feel like yeah, I feel really comforted in this position. I'm in the position of Beltane rather than Samhain, where I was before. So in a time of growth, I feel like I'm part of a group. I feel like the opposite energy of the I'm an island thing I was saying before. And now I just feel much more like I understand something about community. Like I understand why it's important to be interconnected with other people and other things. And I can't, it's actually almost like there's something that feels like delusional about the way I was before, of like believing that I could be truly independent. And there's some like almost a feeling of maturity settling into my body of like I'm I'm smaller than I thought. I'm I'm less. Oh, I don't want to offend anyone here because I don't know what people have chosen as element 2. It's not that. It's almost like I've been brought down to size in a really healthy way. Of just like I know that my interconnection with other beings and people is really important, and um, yeah, I'm just feeling accompanied, held. I'm feeling connected to my community or my whatever these elements are. There's a feeling of connectedness, and I feel protected and safe, which is great. Okay, tuning into element 3, the green sea glass. Yeah, I feel good too. I don't think I'm not going to overcomplicate it. I feel good too. I feel good in this positioning. I feel good to be at the back of the line alongside element 1. I feel strong and I feel like we're part of a pack. I feel like like a good pack feeling, being part of community. All right, finally tuning into element 4, the coin in the center of the shot. Yeah, I mean, I'm still feeling great about being at the summer solstice. I'm feeling fine about being ahead of other people. I don't feel necessarily like I'm leading everything, but I feel fine, like walking out ahead of all of them. This feels like a really satisfactory position to be in. All right, so we're going to leave it there for this reading. If we were working in person together, like one to one, then we could go further with this. Without knowing what your elements are or what your relationship issue is that you've brought to this constellation, we can't really go any further. But I really hope that this constellation has brought you some insight, some food for thought, some clarity in the relationship that you're working on, and may that clarity continue to grow in your life, and be positive for yourself and all people you're connected to. Wishing you really well. Hope you're having a great week and looking forward to connect to you soon.